man, welcome in for another edition, of course, of the Single Life. Listen, I appreciate you guys checking us out every Monday. Of course, we have the what my plate, my choice every first and third, and then the Single Life every second and fourth. So I do want to let you all know that I absolutely appreciate everybody that jumps in on the stream each week. We appreciate that. Today, I got a couple of guests. I got one more guest. Hopefully, they'll be able to get in and get everything squared away so we can have them, so I can have another male voice, another source of male perspective on here. But if not, we'll just roll with what we got. I do want to get ready to bring on the two guests that I have for today with us today. Because we're going to cover a topic that I feel like is very good, and I feel like it's something that a lot of people kind of discuss in relationships, and a lot of people kind of have questions about. I guess even probably in marriage as well, but of course this is the single life, so we're not really focused on that side. So without further ado, I will jump into it with our guest. First guest, Alan. Second guest, Shekinah Joy Lee. You know, she got so many names these days. Shekinah Joy Lee. I'll give you all of them. I'll give you all your props. All right. Big shout out to you guys. I appreciate you guys jumping on the stream today. Yeah, let's figure out how we're gonna set everybody up so everybody's there. Boom, boom, boom. All right, boom. Here we go. Here we go. All right, so everybody good? Tiffany, Shekinah, both you guys can hear me?
Yes.
All right, bet. So let's jump into it, right? So today I want to cover the topic of gender roles, right? Gender roles. Gender roles is what I want to cover. I think I see T jumping on. Hopefully T can hear us and we can hear him and get some feedback from him too. So today I want to cover gender roles, right? So when you hear that term gender roles, and I'll start with you, Tiffany, and we can just go Tiffany, Shekinah, T on.
I can't hear anything. Can't hear anything. Um, What's up until he gets back? Do you wanna? Let me see. What's up until he gets back?
All right, yo, I'm back.
There you go. Okay, I was about to say.
Yes.
You want to go ahead? Answer the question. I was about to
Right, yo, my bad on that. Okay, all right. So, I want to get into it. When you guys hear the term gender roles, what stands out to you guys? What do you guys hear? What does that? What is the connotation between those two words, gender roles? Tiffany, you can jump in first. Go ahead.
It honestly sounds like something that was created when women didn't have rights. Like that's the first thing I think of when I hear gender roles.
Okay, all right. Shekinah, what you got?
To Tiffany's point, like social constructs and things like that. Like, I'm not gonna go too deep into it because we have plenty of time to slice and dice it. But I think of an expectation, if you will, of like what my limits are, what my boundaries are, what my like what where my ceiling is. We don't believe in those ceilings around here, you know what I'm talking about? But like that's what it's giving.
Right. Okay. So, I'm glad that you guys built it that way, right? Because it's what I had in my notes. So, Tip, to your point, um, I feel like when you think about gender roles, right? I think it originates from the older society where we are used to the man is the worker, he's the breadwinner, he goes out, he does everything, and the woman, the wife, she is just stay at home, she is cook and clean, she is maintain the kids. And in 2024 we are so far removed from that, right? Like we are so far removed from that thought process and that lifestyle as a whole. And so I think a lot of times we kind of hit this wall of, you kind of have men who have that perspective, like, all right, well, here's what I want my woman to do, here's what I would like her to do, here's what she needs to do. And then you have this modern woman that's like, no, 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 fam, hold on, no, we don't move like that, we don't move like that, right? So why do you all think it is important to have that conversation on the front end of building a relationship or even trying to entertain a relationship?
I think the issue is that before you even get into the relationship part, it's the idea around your identity and understanding that your identity is not a role. And I think we kind of get confused around that part. Like, especially as a when you have an identity, your identity validation also is supposed to come from Christ first, right? And then
Right.
after that, we're in these other spaces. And so you'd imagine that in partnership, you partner with a person who is graced to manage whatever identity and purpose God has ordained you for, not whatever, because that role, whatever role is, again, that's like that box or ceiling, and it doesn't leave a lot of room for you to be the fullness of all that you can be when you're trying to put everything in the box of that role. So I think that when you're talking about how that can impact your relationships with your partner, if you're not careful, it can limit who you have the potential to be on both ends. Because I don't think roles just exist for women and boundaries exist for women in that space. I think the same thing happens for men as well. An expectation, you're supposed to be able to do this, and this. And women are supposed to be able to do this, and this. But we don't talk about like helpmates and the idea of helping each other be develop into these things and
Right.
things like that.
All right, T, we got you on. I think I hear some audio coming from you. So, T, when you hear the term gender roles, what comes up in your mind?
So can y'all hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, we can hear you. You good to go.
Okay. So I think I'm a little bit older than y'all. So I kind of think of traditional, all right, this man's position, this is a woman's position normally, right?
Right.
But in life experiences, I've come to realize that some men aren't best in the traditional masculine positions,
Sure. For
and
sure.
some women aren't best in the traditional feminine position, right? So I think you you know the role is what's good for you.
Okay. Okay. So, like, and so for me, it's like this, right? So when I think about it, I think we have transitioned to the place more so now where it's a partnership,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm not looking for a defined role. I need a partner, right?
Yeah.
Like we share the same. Listen, you got a relationship, it's one relationship. It's not my part of the relationship and then your part of the relationship.
Yeah.
It's one relationship. And in a partnership, and anybody who's played any type of team sports, you understand somebody's got to be able to pick up the slack. So
Yeah.
I know, like me, for instance, if we stick to the old traditional, right, idea of gender roles, I would be going against the grain because I love to cook, right? Like I love to cook. I don't have an expectation for my partner, my girlfriend, my wife. Hey, you need to, when I come home, it need to be a meal, or when I come see you, better be a meal sitting on the counter. Like that's not my thought process because I love to cook. I'm not on that. You understand what I'm saying? Like I want more of a partnership. So if I cook, you're in my mind now, this is what I mean when I say partnership. If I cook, your thought process is, oh, I got the dishes, babe. You cooked, I got the dishes. You know what I mean? Like everything we do, the approach is that we're approaching it together. Do you guys agree or disagree with that standpoint?
I agree. It's a team. It's a teammate. It's a helpmate. Like she said, like you're in a partnership. You're working together instead of against each other. And I think that was the thing with traditional gender roles. One person is doing so much, and the other person think they're doing so much. But I mean, you're not even coming together, so you're opposites at this point. You have tension. Is people have attitude. So I'm doing this and that all day, and you're doing this. You're out all day. I'm in the house all day. I don't get to leave the house. I'm with the kids,
For
raising them
sure.
basically by myself. So that's called tension. But the women was just quiet and wasn't much being said about it. But now marriages are breaking up or relationships aren't making it to where they could be because of it. Because I'm supposed to play a certain role and you're supposed to play a certain role. And when that's not played, then this relationship is not working.
Okay, so let me dive into this. I kind of want you to definitely jump on this. All right, so here's what I feel, and I see the chat definitely lighting up on some thoughts on this. Right, so let me say this. Here's my perspective on it. Like I feel like we have shifted because we are now in a place where you have women that are go-getters, right? You have dominant women in society, women that are, making things happen. So when you look at it from that perspective, there has to be balance is always key because there has to be some balance of a man to come in, because if we look at it, if we just deal with that perspective, right? I hear a lot of people talk about how women of a certain status are intimidating, right? Like, oh man, she's very successful, she's very this and that, like she's intimidating. But if we're coming in for a partnership, why would any one side be intimidating? If it's truly going to be a partnership, right? I think when you hear that, it immediately speaks to I'm in a gender role. Like I'm focused on a gender role because I think I'm the man. I'm supposed to make more than you. I'm the man. I'm supposed to be the one that's got to say so because I got the big check. But when you're talking about a partnership, hey, listen, we got two incomes coming in and we got 30 bills that we got to take care of. Let's get after them, right? Like that becomes the mode. So I think my question to you guys is this: how has the I guess the acceleration of the female career and the female life, how has that changed the gender role?
So I think, right? I mean, I just don't think it's almost like this. Okay, what has happened is it's not so much so like changing the gender role. It's the expectation that comes with if I'm a woman, I'm supposed to do A, B, and C. Gender roles, and the ideal of it says is a social construct. To Tiffany's point, we couldn't like think about the concept of I needed you. Like I had to, you had
Right.
to go to the bank. I couldn't own any land. I couldn't have a bank account. Nothing could be in my name. Like you hear countless situations where women weren't going to go get an education or anything like that. Like everything was contingent upon that space. So the fact that some of the playing field around some of those areas have been leveled, that's like, that's another conversation in itself related to like sometimes the idea of like pride or the expectation of what I'm supposed to be able to do. And then the bigger conversation, which I thought this was going to immediately lead to, was the idea around being submissive and what it means to do that.
Okay, so
but my big impact, I remember, I don't know if y'all remember this. I had bought this out my little what's it called, my little photo thing. I don't know if y'all remember this. Pastor Miss Matthews did a whole entire like series about like the man God chooses and things like that. But I remember vividly about them having to be submissive to God and then being able, in order for you to be in that space, to be submissive.
right.
But in addition to that, it's the idea of like, first of all, why are we even having conversations about like something, a God given purpose that led me to go and pursue all these other type of things? Like, if anything, this should be like, oh, hustle, okay, bet got it, okay, boom, what I gotta do, that type of thing. To build those two things together, it's not. Again, to that conversation about role and identity, they're two completely separate things. Like, just because we have a role for something doesn't mean that's who we are. And I think if we were able to really have a conversation about how can I be the better version of myself, if you're talking about a helpmate, that's what that's supposed to be for. If we're talking about anybody's role, that's it. That's the only role there is. Not necessarily, it doesn't have to be a gender role. Take all that stuff that everybody's talking about outside and leave it out of your house. When you're talking about you and your person together, it's y'all together. That's it. However it works for you, whatever. Seymour said that earlier. Whatever it is that works for y'all is what works for y'all. Like, and let that be the focus.
All right. So, T, you got something you want to add to that?
The thing is, I guess in a relationship now, if the man, one role like protection, my thing is if he is a God-fearing man, then that's gonna come because God don't operate in chaos. So there won't be chaos in your house if he's looking to God for answers for his household.
Okay. Okay. T Ward, you want to jump in there?
Yeah. So this is getting real touchy feely now, right? So the thing is, so I kind of had the same stance, like all and totally encompassed on this because like I think communication is like key to what's important to who, right? Like Tiffany said something about protection, right? So if she knows that protection is something that's high importance to her,
Right.
and guy A can't provide that, then you look at that as not being a good candidate.
Cut off.
Okay. So I think, and with that being said, and I do want to dive back to, I want to circle back to something Shekinah said because I think it's so big in society today. She said this S word, and it's a curse word because you said the word submissive, right? Like, and the reason why I say it's like a curse word because the moment that word comes out, it brings such a negative response. Like women, I feel like submissive is like a trigger. Like when you hear it's like, no, I can't do this. I'm not trying to do nothing with you because you want me to just submit and not say nothing and shut up. Which is not the thing, but I think there is a level of balance, and I think that submission has to happen on both sides of the line, right? And I think like we've been so twisted and warped in the old school way of thinking that's like, yeah, just the woman has to submit. No, as a man, there's a level of submission that you have to do too, because it's again a partnership, right? And I think that's what will help us kind of excel in the single life is understanding that my voice is not more important than your voice, right? My wants and my desires are not more important than your wants or desires. You worked all day, I worked all day too. You don't feel like cooking, I don't feel like cooking either. Let's go eat out tonight. Feel me? Like let's order pizza. Like that's it's understanding that there's balance. But that word submission, and that's why I want to ask you all, like, why do you think that word now in 2024 has such a negative vibe when you say submission or submit?
I'll jump in first. So, like you said, the word submission automatically sounds like do what I told you,
Yeah,
Exactly.
right?
yeah.
Right.
There you go.
But that's not the accurate meaning of it. So our pastor gave a great definition years ago. He said submission is under the mission of another person, right? So if the guy, if you have experienced, hey, that the guy is under another man's mission or under a mission that God has put him on, over, then it makes it, I would assume, easier to submit. But then submitting being a team, a joint effort, as
Right.
opposed to I'm the captain, you the foot soldier.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I like that. I like that. Shekinah, what you got?
Even to your point, T Ward, the idea around like I can you it's like almost, I mean, am my situation blindly in the blind, or am I in a situation where like where you're leading me makes sense? You see what I'm saying? Or like and then if I know you have a relationship with God, that helps that. If I understand that you have a relationship with God, and that's not even just, we're talking about the context of men and women, but even in when you're in certain spaces of like spiritual leadership and stuff like that, pastors say all the time, if you're not, your life isn't getting better, divorce me, separate from me, go if it's not improving. And I think those same concepts come up when you talk about partnerships, friendships, whatever, because at the end of the day, am I getting to my goal? Am I being edified for who I'm supposed to be as a person? We're meant to replicate God's glory. We're meant to win souls to Christ. We're meant to pursue our purpose and be all that we're supposed to be on this earth. Is this aiding in that? And if I'm so busy trying to do exactly what you say, and you're not going anywhere that makes any sense, and you're not in alignment with your own purpose and your own vision for God's glory, you throwing me off. I'm all over the place now because I'm following somebody that not making no sense. And I
Right.
think too, to your point, T Word, submission and obedience is not what that they don't go hand in hand. It's not blind obedience. You see what I'm saying? It's almost like a opportunity to be of service in a way. You know what I mean? Like that's what is being of in that concept. It's like being of service to the other person, so that both of you all can continue to fulfill the overall mission and goal of being a bringing God's glory to the earth and being a representation like you're supposed to be.
Okay, so Tiffany, before I let you respond, I'm about to highlight this question because I pay attention to the chat while we're talking. And I think it's critical. So Luanda says, if you're not married, you should not be submitting to a man or a woman. Now, where do you all stand on this? Now, I will lead with my thoughts on this, right? So if you are not married and we're talking about a lack of submission, I need y'all to, well, let me add, I'm gonna be dumb. Let me say that. I'll be dumb. And you guys can explain, because Shekinah, I see you getting hyped up for this as if you 100% agree with this question. So I need you to explain to me how you guys feel like the relationship can grow in a relationship status if there's no submission at any point. Because if there's no submission at that level, and I'm not saying 100%, but I'm saying there has to be some submission in the dating phase, because otherwise we're never going to get to the married phase to even see what that level of submission looks like. Because you're just going to buck the system right here. Like, nah, I ain't submitting to you. You're not my husband. Well,
okay, it's giving a lot of okay. It's giving a lot of black and white thinking here. Let's get a little let's go to the gray. Let's not be so okay. It's not always so black and white. Let's float away from that. Okay, let's digress. I felt a little. We tapped on some stuff.
Yeah. Come on.
And we can, if you need some space to talk about that, we can make some room at another time. But see, Ward has said something earlier, and I think it's the most important part is the communication aspect of it. First of all, we need to see if our definitions of submission are the same in the first place, because what is given is that like sometimes our definitions and expectations aren't even lining up,
right?
Or like what that's supposed to look like. He said that earlier, and I think that's so profound. Like you need to know what that is in the first place, anyway. And I think underneath that, I think the submission, both people being submitted to God, it equals you being of service to one another. And I think that is what gets us to where we want to be. I'm not saying I'm not gonna listen to nothing you guys say. If you have insight on something that I'm not familiar with, for example, every other Monday, right? You're doing my health, my choice, right? Because you have a space that you're an expert in that I can listen to what you're saying. And in that regard, everybody gets on the call in some way is being obedient to what you're saying, is listening to what you're saying, is being submissive to what you're saying, because you're the expert in that space. Vice versa. If there's an area that your partner might be more knowledgeable in, I'm listening to what you got to say, but that doesn't mean it's not like it's like, I think what they're trying to communicate is that until I am married, right, my first line of defense as related to that submissive area is God.
Absolutely. 100% agree with that.
You see what I'm saying? But my
100% agree with that.
No, don't nobody go above that. And if what this man that I'm partnered with is saying, or this person I'm dating is what it's saying, does not match up with what God is saying, and we have a real disconnected problem. You got to be in line with him first, and then as you're in line with him, then the rest of that stuff. That's what I think she's trying to communicate. And in that point, I do agree. Be submitted to the Lord, and then we can listen to the there you go. Exactly. It's kind of very good, Lamont. I was trying to make sure I was right. I'm right. Okay. But yeah.
Tiffany, what you got on that?
I believe that, like T. Ward said, the word submissive is just, it have a bad rep. So everybody look at that word like,
look at how the chat started lighting up once we started talking about the word submit.
That's what that word. So
everybody had a response. It's like, whoa.
It's just, and it could be so many other things, but it stems back from, especially with women, from the way women was treated. So it's like, oh, we ain't doing that no more. Like, who you talking to? I'm not doing that. You're not telling me what to do. But then, like Shekinah said, if you align, if your relationship is aligned or your thoughts are aligned with God, then it shouldn't be a problem. Everything is a conversation. It can be a conversation about it. And if in a dating area, if we not even clicking on certain conversations, especially about God or about the way submissive is and other things, then it's no point of going any further.
All right, bet. Why y'all right here? Okay, cool. I'm glad y'all right here. I'm glad. I love where y'all pulled up in part. So you're dating, okay? Because here's a big part. Let's look at this from this perspective. So you're dating, right? And I know what church all three of y'all go to. I know what church y'all go to, right? But the person that you're dating does not go to your church. Now, I know y'all love y'all church. And I know y'all love y'all pastor, right? So where does the balance come? Where does the balance come? Like, do we Do I now, old school thinking says that the woman acquiesces to the man, and wherever his church is, that's the church y'all now go to, right? New way of thinking says we find a church together. Or B, you coming to my church because I'm not leaving my church for nothing. God ain't told me that. So, where do you fall in that line? Because that also is a part of this role. These roles, like all these are different tiers that kind of hold up the house. And for us as believers, God is going to be at the top of the list. Whereas for some other people, it may not be the top of the list. But like your ability to hear God, your relationship with God. And I'm not saying we got to be like, you got to be where I am. And, there's growth. Everybody's working on something. And I totally get that. But when it comes to your church, how do you guys feel about, I'm dating someone that doesn't go to my church, but what needs to be there as we continue to grow and level up? What are we doing about this church?
All right, I'll start it off. Again, I feel like everything is a conversation, right?
Right.
We sit down and we do like it could be like all right, pros and cons list. You know what I'm saying? Like, all right, this isn't, this
Right.
isn't. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, again, with old school, it was like, all right, we going to the man church. Unless the man ain't got no church, we going to the woman church. You know what I'm saying? So, at this point, like you can't go in a relationship closed minded, like it's gonna go my way or no way, right?
Absolutely.
Exactly.
I
Absolutely.
mean, it's certain stuff deal breakers, but if you're gonna be in a relationship with somebody, it's gonna be a lot of giving and taking. So
Absolutely. Which is back to the point that I made a while ago, that submission has to happen on both sides. Like
yeah,
it can't just be, and I get it, like you have a lot of men and our masculinity, right? Like it's certain things I'm not gonna do, right? But if you want a successful relationship, there are a lot of things that you have to learn how to do, right? Like you have to learn that and I mean, we're just talking in the most basic terms. If you guys were to coexist in a space at some point, like you have to learn that I can't expect one person to do the same assignment every time, right? Like I can't expect you to wash clothes all 24/7. I'm expecting you to wash clothes. No, and I got my feet kicked up. Like there has to be equal submission. And I think that in order for women not to be so triggered by the word submissive, you've got to see a man that's willing to submit to you and to the relationship as a whole. You got what I'm saying? Because you have a relationship with God, God is going to talk to you. Like my mom will always say, and I love it. She'll be like, I'm not even going to fuss with you. I'm not going to argue with you. God going to change your heart. And you're going to hear God and he going to help you see it. And you know what? But I get so mad because I be like, nah. And you driving down the road and God talked to you just as plain. Hey, you was wrong about that, right? You need to have a different approach to that situation, right? So that's why I'm saying the submission has to happen on both sides, because now my job is to not be so masculine that I can't go back to my partner and say, hey, I was wrong. I missed that one, right? I was wrong on that. So T jumped on there. I apologize for stealing the show with that. So T jumped on that. Shekinah, Tiffany, what y'all got on churches?
Okay. Unfortunately, I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna have to fly. But
I got you.
So the main, I would, two things. T.O.R. said something again, a conversation, like beautiful thing. But before even a conversation, like what does it look like for us to be praying even then about my heart, making sure that it's in the right place, that my partner's heart is in the right place before we even have this conversation? Or what does it look like to introduce God, like guide us to where we're supposed to go? So where it's like, I'm not even, if he did it in the Bible, if he was coming in dreams and things like that, and talking to people in dreams about their partnership in the Bible, why wouldn't he be doing it? Where we need to go, what we need to do? Why wouldn't he be doing things like that now? And I kind of think in the same regard, when you're talking about your relationship, about your church home, it'll be, when it comes time to select that opportunity or select that space, it'll be a mutual conversation or mutual understanding about what it's supposed to look like, whatever your process in your home looks like for you and your process in your home. Like, what it means, are we getting fed? Are we growing spiritually? And that'll be something that, because at the beginning of this, like how we started, this person is already in relationship with God as I am. So it's not like I'm trying to go pull somebody and tell them to blindly lead me somewhere. I've vetted them at this point. If I'm talking about selected churches, we vetted it at this point to understand that we're on the same page about what being spiritually fed is supposed to look like.
Bet. Shekinah, I really have one more question I want you to answer, and I want everybody to answer before we go. Can I ask one question before
Yes.
you?
Yes.
Okay. And Tiffany, you got to jump in on this too, right? So here we go. Are gender roles defined by race?
Mm. There's so many cultural connotations.
There are.
There's so
There
many
are.
connotations, and I almost feel like it's not fair to say my black and if somebody else is black is not the same black, and that's not fair to try to say that all black people blah and all white people blah, or all other cultures and bases and things like that. There's all types of things, and if you go somewhere, that is true. I can't wear certain clothes and stuff. This would be inappropriate. I got on a dress that stops at my knees. I could get stoned going somewhere dressed like this. So I think yes, of course. And if we're talking about what that communication piece, because I'm in a culture, if my culture is different from my partner, that communication piece that T-Roy was saying, all those things have to be a conversation, because now all the it's all about language. Like the language is different now between me and this person. What my idea of running a household and what it's supposed to look like, and your idea of running a household can be completely different. So the gender roles then can be completely different. But I think some people need to have very sincere conversations about that, about their expectations all day, every day.
Okay, I got you. And I know you got a jet, so I appreciate it. Much
I
love.
love y'all
Much
so
love.
much. This was great. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Tiff and Tito, we got to finish this. I need y'all's responses on this.
Cultural?
Yeah. Does
Yes.
are gender roles defined by race?
Well, I think it's more culture than race
Okay.
because, like she said, their expectations. If you study other cultures, you will see that it's a lot of things that don't happen in our culture that happen in others. And as far as go back to even how kids are being raised. So, yes, I think so. I think some are even being raised up in a certain way just for that role.
Okay. T.
Yeah, I agree. You know, I I done seen a lot over the years, you know what I'm saying? And as a child, I grew as a young man, I grew up thinking one way, assuming things were supposed to be one way, but life experiences have shown me differently, right? And you
Absolutely.
just really have to gravitate to what works for you. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? What works for my brother may not work for me. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? What works for George in his relationship may not work
Right.
for me. You know what I'm saying? And you just got to be man enough and confident enough to know that, okay, I'm running play A and he's running play B. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And this
Right.
is what works for us.
Right.
But yes, I do think um, environment has a big role in who plays what role and who accepts what position.
Got you. I like that. And I think T, you said one of the most critical points for this entire session today is that communication is the most important thing. Single, married, communication is the most important thing. It won't work. If I'm keeping in my thoughts, it won't work. If you don't want to share how I hurt or offended you, it won't work. If you have a certain level of expectations and you didn't communicate those to me, so I'm existing here and your expectations are here, I could easily go there, but I need to know what it is you want and what you're looking for. Like the communication has to happen. And so when you start talking about these roles, quote unquote, these roles, we got to have a conversation for what works for this. Because I also think that there's a place for this. We all are shaped by our past relationships, right? So you move into this thinking like, all right, man, like this is how I handled the last relationship, and like we didn't go left because of these things. So then that means that these things must work. So I can now bring those over here, but you're dealing with a totally different person now, right? So again, we're back to the point of conversation is key. Communication is key. Communication is key. All right, man. So we're going to close with that today. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. For everybody that jumped on the live today, thank you so much for your commentary and your words. Tiffany, T, Shekinah, thank you guys so much for being guests today. I appreciate your thoughts and input. Like always, be blessed. And we'll see you guys back next week.